Good morning, friends. Welcome to the YouTube channel GRE GMAT Titans. I am your trainer Hitanshu Munjal, and today we are going to do our next lecture, namely Critical Reasoning Basics Revisited, Argument Structure in Detail, Conclusion, Premise, Background, Counterpoint, Intermediate Conclusions, and the Therefore test. So what's the core argument? A core argument is the essential structure of an argument consisting of two main parts: premises, the evidence, reasons, or facts provided; conclusion, the main claim the author wants you to accept. In short, core argument is equal to premises plus conclusion. Everything else in the passage, examples, background information, opinions, comparisons, is secondary. The core argument focuses only on why the author's main point is supposed to be true. So what's a conclusion? The conclusion is the central claim, opinion, or position that the argument is trying to prove or persuade you to accept. It is the end point of the argument's reasoning supported by evidence, premises. Identifying the conclusion is the single most important step in solving these questions. Key characteristics of a conclusion. It is a judgment, not a fact. It goes beyond the raw data to make a claim, prediction, recommendation, or evaluation. Example, therefore the company should abandon the project. This is a judgment or a recommendation. And what is not a conclusion? The project is 40% over budget. This is a premise, a factual statement used as evidence. It is supported by other statements. The conclusion depends on the premises for its validity. You can often test this by asking, why should I believe this? The answer will point out to the premises. It is often signaled by keywords. While not always present, conclusion indicator words are strong clues. Words like therefore, thus, hence, so, consequently, as a result. It follows that, this, shows, suggests, indicates, proves that, we can conclude that, the point is that, in conclusion, must, should, ought to. Strategies for identifying the conclusion. Always ask yourself the fundamental question: what is the author ultimately trying to convince me of? The answer is the conclusion. Mentally place therefore before each major statement. The one that makes sense is as the logical result of the other statements is the conclusion. So what is correct is premise plus premise A plus premise B, therefore conclusion. What is wrong is conclusion first and therefore premise. So this is the illogical sequence. Look for indicator words such as therefore, thus, hence, so, consequently, as a result, it follows that, that shows, proves that, we can conclude that, in conclusion, must, should, ought to, in a recommendation. Also use the why, because test. Ask, why should I believe this claim? The statements that directly answer why are the premises. Ask, what does this evidence lead to? The statement that is the end point of the reasoning is the conclusion. Premise. So what's a premise? It is a statement that provides support, evidence, or reason for a conclusion. It is the information we start with in an argument. The conclusion depends on the premises to make sense. It can be a fact or an opinion, can be a description, historical information, statistical or numerical data, or a comparison of things. It is often signaled by words or phrases such as because of, since, due to, and as a result of. All arguments contain at least one premise. Key characteristics of a premise. It is presented as a fact or accepted truth. The argument assumes the premises are true for the sake of the argument. They are the foundation. The test taker is generally not asked to dispute their truthfulness, but to see how they relate to the conclusion. Example, the company's revenue has declined for 3 consecutive quarters. This is presented as an accepted fact that supports a conclusion like the CEO must be replaced. So, if the company's revenue has declined for 3 consecutive quarters, naturally the CEO must be replaced could be the conclusion. Second is that it provides support for another statement. Its primary role is to make the conclusion more believable, likely, or reasonable. Ask what reason is given for that claim. The answer will point out to the premises. It is often signaled by keywords. Premises indicators introduce reasons or evidence. Words like because, since, for, given that, as. The reason is that, due to the fact that, in light of, first, second, when listing evidence. Studies show that, the data indicates that, as evidenced by. It answers the question why or how do you know. If you ask these questions about the conclusion, the premises provide the answer. It can take many forms such as statistics, 70% of the patients improved, so the drug is effective. Poll surveys, most employees report low morale, therefore management needs to change. Reports, studies, according to the safety audit, the bridge has structural flaws, thus it must be closed. Observation or examples, every eagle we have observed has keen eyesight, so all eagles must have excellent vision. Different types of premises. First is premise based on statistics. Statistics are numerical data points used to establish or as a factual basis. Example, according to National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, seatbelt use in passenger vehicles saved an estimated 14,955 lives in 2017. Therefore, mandatory seatbelt laws are essential public safety measures. Premise. Seatbelt use approximately 15,000 lives in 1 year. Conclusion. Therefore, the laws requiring them are essential. Second is premises based on polls, measurement of public opinion. Polls sample public opinion to show what a population thinks or believes. Example, a recent Gallup poll found that 72% of Americans believe that the economy is getting worse. This indicates a widespread lack of confidence in the current administration's economic policies. Premise. A large majority of the public holds a negative view of the economy's direction. Conclusion. Therefore, there is a lack of confidence in the relevant policies. Third, premise based on reports. Formal studies or investigations. Reports are detailed documents from authoritative bodies, government, NGOs, research institutes. Example, the IPCC Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change 6th assessment report states it is unequivocal that human influence has warmed the atmosphere, ocean and land. Thus, any credible national policy must prioritize rapid reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. Premise. The leading global scientific authority has concluded human activity is causing warming. Conclusion. Therefore, policy must address the cause. Fourth, premises based on surveys, structured data collection. Surveys systematically collect data from a specific group, often about behaviors or experiences. Example, an internal employee engagement survey revealed that only 40% of staff feels that management is transparent about company decisions. This low score suggests we have a serious communication problem within our leadership team. Premise. A majority of employees do not perceive management as transparent. Conclusion. Therefore, a leadership communication problem exists. So the strategy for identification is the why because test. This is the most reliable method for untangling an argument. Find a statement that sounds like the main claim, the conclusion. Second step, ask why should I believe this. Third, the statements that answer that question are the premises. Example argument, premise 1. Company Z has invested more in research and development than any competitor. Premise 2, its patent filings have increased by 50% this year. Conclusion, therefore, Company Z is likely to be the industry's innovation leader next year. Applying the test, why is the company Z likely to be the innovation leader? Because it invests the most in R&D, premise 1. Because its patent filings are surging, premise 2. So that's how we identify the premises with the use of the why because of test. Core relationship, premise versus conclusion. Premise is the evidence because it is raining. Conclusion, claim, therefore the ground is wet. The premise provides the logical support for the conclusion. So basically, the premise is the reason for the conclusion. It provides the logical support for the conclusion. It is the foundation on the basis of which the conclusion is based. So now we come to the next component, that is the counterpoint. So some arguments contain a counterpoint or counterpremise, a piece of information that goes against the author's conclusion, the counterpoint. The counterpoint is not part of the core, only present occasionally, opposes or goes against the author's conclusion in some way, introduces multiple opportunities for traps, believing that the conclusion is the opposite of what it is, mistakenly labeling a counterpoint the premise and vice versa, and so on. Often signaled by transition words such as however, yet, and, but. Typically, the transition word will be found somewhere between the counter premise and the conclusion, though the two sentences may not be right next to each other. Background. Many arguments, though not all, contain background information which provides context to allow us to understand the basic situation. The background information is not part of the core, often present but not always, provides context to help understand the core, is almost always fact-based, can be in almost any form. Historical information, numerical or other data, descriptions of plans or ideas, definitions of words or concepts, and so on. Example argument. The expansion of the runways at Bay City Airport will allow for larger planes to travel to and from Bay City. These new planes will create a large amount of noise, a nuisance for residents who will live near the airport. However, many of the residents in this neighborhood work in construction, and the contract to expand the runways has been awarded to a local construction company. Thus, the expansion of the runways will lead to an increased quality of life for the residents of this neighborhood. So let's deconstruct the above argument. Sentence 1. This is background information because it tells us about the current situation, that the expansion of the runways is going on, and this expansion will allow larger planes to travel to and fro from Bay City. So it is basically telling about the current happenings. So that's why it is the background information. Sentence 4. This is the conclusion as it is indicated by the word thus. This sentence also tells us that the outcome result of the expansion of runways will be increased quality of life for residents. But on what basis the author concludes this? So sentence 4 obviously is the conclusion. First, it is indicated by the word thus, and it says the expansion of the runways will lead to an increased quality of life for the residents of this neighborhood. So first indication is the word thus, and second indication is that it is telling us about the result or the outcome of the expansion of runways in the Bay City Airport. And on what basis he is author has concluded this? It is the sentence 3. It says many of the residents in this neighborhood work in construction, and the contract to expand the runways has been awarded to a local construction company. So obviously the author means to say that the many of the residents are working in construction, and the contract to expand the runways has been awarded to a local construction company. By this the author means that it will create a lot of job opportunities for the local residents. So that's how it will increase the quality of life of the residents. So that's why sentence 3 is the premise. But on what basis the author concludes this? He concludes this on the basis of information contained in sentence 3, which states that many of the residents in this neighborhood work in construction, and the contract to expand runways has been awarded to the local construction company, meaning that this work of expansion of runways will create jobs for the local residents, and jobs will bring income, which in turn will increase the quality of life of the local residents. Therefore, sentence 3 is the premise. But in sentence 2, the author states that these new planes will create nuisance for the residents who live near the airport by making a large amount of noise, thus decreasing the quality of life of these residents, which is the opposite of what the conclusion says. Therefore, sentence 2 is the counterpoint. So in this argument, sentence 2, it says these new planes will create a large amount of noise, a nuisance for residents who live near the airport. Obviously, any kind of nuisance, any kind of noise pollution will decrease the quality of life. So basically it is saying opposite to the conclusion. Okay, it is going against the conclusion. That's why sentence 2 is the counterpoint. So the core argument in the above example, as studied earlier, the core argument consists of premise and the conclusion. Therefore, in the above example, the core consists of the following two statements. Premise: however, many of the residents in this neighborhood work in construction and the contract to expand the runways has been awarded to the local construction company. Conclusion: thus, the expansion of runways will lead to an increased quality of life for the residents of this neighborhood. So these two premise and conclusion consist of the core argument. Now we will study about the intermediate and final conclusions. So to understand the above concept, let us have a look at the following argument. The burglar is clumsy and often makes a lot of noise while robbing homes. As a result, he is more likely to get caught. Thus, in the near future, he will probably end up in jail. Premise: the burglar is clumsy and often makes a lot of noise while robbing homes. Conclusion 1: as a result, he is more likely to get caught. Conclusion 2: thus, in the near future, he will probably end up in jail. Now we'll see how to identify the intermediate and final conclusion by using the therefore test. So after applying the therefore, first we will write the conclusion 1. He will probably end up in jail, and then we will write the word therefore. And the second conclusion: he is more likely to get caught. And now we will reverse the order. We will write conclusion 2 first. He is more likely to get caught. Therefore, he will probably end up in jail. Now we have to see which of the statements makes more sense. Obviously, the second statement makes more sense because first he will get caught and then he will end up in jail. Not the other way around, that first he will go in jail and then he will get caught. Okay, so the conclusion after the therefore is the final conclusion. So the final conclusion in the above argument is he will probably end up in jail. Now let's have a look at another example. The owner of a small publishing company plans to lease a new office space that has floor-to-ceiling windows and no internal walls, arguing that the new space will enhance worker productivity. The owner cites a recent study showing that workers exposed to natural light throughout the day tended to report on average a higher level of job satisfaction than did those who worked in office spaces that used fluorescent lighting. Thus, the owner concluded exposure to natural light has a positive effect on workers' satisfaction. So we first we identify the two conclusions here and then we apply the therefore test. So conclusion A is arguing that the new space will enhance worker productivity. This is the first conclusion, arguing that the new space will enhance worker productivity. This is a statement of judgment. Okay, and also kind of prediction also. This is the first conclusion. And the second conclusion is, it is indicated by the word concluded. It says exposure to natural light has a positive effect on workers' job satisfaction. Now we apply the therefore test. So conclusion A, arguing that the new space will enhance worker productivity. Conclusion B, thus the owner concluded exposure to natural light has a positive effect on workers' job satisfaction. Which scenario makes more sense? The new space will enhance worker productivity, therefore exposure to natural light has a positive effect on workers' job satisfaction, or exposure to natural light has a positive effect on workers' job satisfaction, therefore the new space will enhance worker productivity. So will the productivity first enhance and thereafter the workers' job satisfaction will increase, or it will there will be a positive effect on workers' job satisfaction, or it is the other way around, that workers' job satisfaction will enhance and then the productivity will enhance. So obviously, first the job satisfaction increases and then the productivity will increase. Therefore, the statement after therefore is the final conclusion. So here the second scenario seems to make more sense. That means that B is the intermediate conclusion and A is the final conclusion. So here we have a problem set for you guys. Have a look. You can have a look at these arguments, and you can identify the argument structure and you can answer in the comments. I'll give you a couple of minutes to note down this argument. So I can read it out for you. A problem instituted by a state government to raise money allows homeowners to prepay their future property taxes at current rate. Even if the government were to raise the tax rate in a subsequent year, any prepaid taxes would allow the homeowner to maintain taxes at the lower rate, lowering the overall property tax burden over time. For this reason, homeowners should participate in the program. Second argument says, Tay-Sachs disease, a usually fatal genetic condition caused by buildup of gangliosides in nerve cells, occurs more frequently among Ashkenazi Jews than among the general population. The age of onset is typically 6 months and generally results in death by the age of 4. Third argument says, some critics have argued that the price of food and drink at Ultralux restaurant is too high given its quality. However, Ultralux features a beautiful interior and comfortable seating, and research has shown that consumers actually enjoy food and drink more in such a setting, even when the food and drink is of comparable quality to that served elsewhere. Thus, the food and drink at Ultralux is reasonably priced. The next one is editorial. To stem the influx of illegal immigrants, the government is planning to construct a wall along our entire border with country Y. This wall, however, will do little to actually reduce the number of illegal immigrants. Because few economic opportunities exist in country Y, individuals will simply develop other creative ways to enter our nation. Fifth, the cutback in physical education is the primary contributing factor to North High School's increasing failure rate on the year-end physical fitness examination. Last year, when students participated in gym class on a daily basis, 85% of school seniors passed the exam. This year, students had gym class twice weekly and only 70% of seniors passed the test. Clearly, fewer sessions of gym class lead to reduced fitness. So this is the problem set I am leaving you with so that you can identify the various building blocks in this. You can leave your answer in the comment section, and also if you have any doubts, please write in the comment section. Please like and subscribe our channel. Thank you for watching. All the best.